Hello, everyone, and welcome to week one of this public comment training hosted by the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. The San Diego Green New Deal Alliance is a coalition of 50 local organizations and small businesses committed to ensuring the San Diego region achieves a zero carbon economy by 2035 in a way that creates good union jobs and more equitable communities. One of the ways that the Alliance works towards achieving its goals is by engaging with elected officials to make sure that they understand how important a zero carbon economy is and how important it is to reach that goal without leaving anyone behind. We're so excited that you've decided to join us this evening. So let's get started. We're going to be recording this meeting and we'll make the recording available to you if you'd like it. To begin, I'd like to introduce you to the team that put this presentation together. My name is Diolinda Montero. I own a graphic design studio and I'm a board member of Business for Good San Diego. I started volunteering for the Green New Deal Alliance last summer. Sometime around August, I was talking with one of the working group chairs and I said, you know, the Alliance encourages people to give public comment at council meetings, but not everyone knows how to do it. Wouldn't it be great if we had some sort of class to walk people through the process and make them feel more comfortable giving comment? And he looked at me and he said, that's a great idea. You're in charge. Now, truth be told, while I am a registered voter and I do vote in every election, up until that point, I had never given public comment at a council meeting. So clearly I was in deep trouble. I told him that I was in no way, shape, or form qualified to be in charge of this effort. He said, don't you worry, we'll find you some help. I have since given public comment, and I assure you that with preparation and support from friends, it is anything but scary and is in fact empowering. The next 4 people that I'm going to introduce you to are amazing at giving public comment, and over the course of a few months, we met weekly to put all of this together. Rita Clement lives in Chula Vista. After working for the Social Security Administration for 45 years, Rita joined local climate activist group San Diego 350 in September of 2018. Having worked in the downtown region for 12 years, she's witnessed many of the daily struggles that people experiencing homelessness in San Diego face. Rita is the co-lead of the San Diego 350 South Bay Eco Justice team and also volunteers on the legislative and transportation committees. Rita continues to learn more about the changing climate and climate solutions, and she hopes you find this public comment training valuable for your activism. Bertha Rodriguez is an organizer for a climate action campaign. She coordinates, volunteers, and facilitates meetings and events at San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. Carl Aldinger is the conservation organizer for Sierra Club San Diego. Since leaving his job as a software engineer, Carl has volunteered with San Diego 350, helped co-found the San Diego hub of the Sunrise Movement in 2018, and currently serves as the president for North County Climate Change Alliance. He also works weekly with members of the Quality of Life Coalition, the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, and the newly formed San Diego Building Electrification Coalition. Joe Hood has decades of experience presenting multi-day seminars on network technologies and business strategies to tens of thousands of adults in over 50 countries. Joe is an active member of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, where he co-leads the Transforming Political Power Committee. Joe is also a board member of North County Climate Change Alliance. He's looking forward to having fun together today. We're all very happy to be here this evening and want to thank you again for joining us. We'll be addressing questions at the end of our presentation. So if you have questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat window. In this week one presentation, we're going to cover what public comment is and why it's important. We'll present a couple of examples of public comment given at city council meetings. Then we'll move on to discuss the process of creating public comment. So let's get started with the what and why of public comment. There are many ways to express your opinion when you feel that change is needed. Some, like this photo, are graphic in nature. Public protests are another powerful way to make your voice heard. And when gatherings like these are noticed by journalists, messages can be heard around the world. Some turn to creativity to express their views, crafting clever and memorable memes to share on social media. While others prefer to make their feelings known within their community. None of these methods of expression are wrong. Providing public comment is a way to take your message straight to your representatives in government, either by writing to or meeting directly with elected officials. Elected officials make decisions every day that affect the lives and livelihoods of their constituents. By providing public comment, you can work to influence elected officials to make decisions that result in positive outcomes. In the state of California, the Ralph M. Brown Act was passed in 1953 to prohibit secret meetings of elected officials and to ensure that the public has the right to attend and participate in meetings. The act applies to county and city government and requires that meetings be open to the public. In 1967, the Bagley-Keene Act was passed to do the same for meetings at the state level in California. Meeting schedules are publicized and efforts are made to allow everyone to participate. The image shown here is of a meeting that Rita Clement attended with other activists and elected officials from Chula Vista. In this case, the meeting was held virtually due to the pandemic. Because councils are not currently meeting in person, video calls are the norm these days, and if you don't have a computer, you can still phone in your comments. In addition to communicating directly with your officials, your comments become part of the public record. Now, not everyone would say that we have a perfect system, but let's watch a couple of examples of activists in action. So this is a video. Oh, thanks, Carl. This is a video of a Los Angeles.
Thank God. That's right. We had 2 meetings that were
This is a video of a Los Angeles City Council meeting held on July 7th, 2006. In this video, Zumadog is providing public comment on a non-agenda item. Non-agenda time is set aside for the public to comment on topics that are not included in the agenda for that particular meeting. We'll talk more about that later. So after we watch this video, we'd like to hear from you. So as you watch the video, think about the presentation. Keep in mind the goals of giving public comment. Giving public comment is your opportunity to speak directly to elected officials, to voice your concerns and influence them to act to alleviate those concerns. So as you watch, ask yourself the following. What is Zumadog concerned about? What actions would he like to see the council take? And do you feel that his presentation was effective? Okay, Carl.
Having an evening meeting, so we welcome folks.
Thank you, President Garcetti.
Thank you very much. Next we have, it says Big ZD, I assume this is Mr. Zumadog. Would you give us your full name as well?
Don't pretend like you don't know. Y'all is Zumadog. That's Z-U-M-A-D-O-double-G, because I'm twice the G you'll ever be. You feel me?
If you can hold us down for 1 second. And Mr. Labange?
Full name of the...
Uh-oh. Apologies.
No worries.
On July 19th, we will be having an evening meeting, so we welcome folks.
Thank you, President Garcetti.
Thank you very much. Next we have, it says Big ZD, I assume this is Mr. Zumadog. Would you give us your full name as well?
Don't pretend like you don't know. Y'all is Zumadog. That's Z-U-M-A-D-O-double-G, because I'm twice the G you'll ever be. You feel me?
If you can hold us down for 1 second. And Mr. Labange?
Full name of the individual speaking.
Is that your legal name, sir?
Yeah, Zumadog. Yeah.
Jeffrey, what's your last name?
No, my name's Zumadog under the Brown Act.
No, what's Jeffrey?
Okay.
I think it's a...
Our city attorney told us under the Brown Act he's not required.
Under the
to.
Brown Act, and you have security around here, Mr. City Attorney? You talk about that, Mr. City
I got metal detector searches, y'all.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
In the context of this meeting, the Brown Act
Your name doesn't matter. Your name doesn't matter.
All that is required that he be identified for the orderly process of the meeting for getting through
But your
public
name
comment.
does not matter.
It's not required.
Thank you.
Regarding the security of the building, that's another issue.
Please continue.
Yeah, triumphant victorious #1. I didn't even start yet. I'm already triumphantly victorious as a public advocate. So everybody knows it's Zumadog, Z-U-M-A-D-O-double-G. I'm twice the G.
Please bring the volume out just a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Dodge.
How come everybody's trying to block me, y'all. Don't you see? I got an LA Times article right now. I've been coming to city council. The LA Times picked up on my whole story, y'all. Public advocate, Zuma Dog waves. What does it say? As Zuma Dog wags tail in council space, y'all. And now KCET picked up the article, y'all. So if you want to see about the bamboozlements and mistruths and unconstitutionalities that's taking place on Venice Beach, you got too many police down there doing unconstitutional things. Watch KCET on Wednesday. That's the kind of stuff you like to watch. It's PBS. They said, Zuma Dog, we saw your stories on the news, and now we're going to do an article. That's on Wednesday, y'all. KCET, Zuma Dog, public advocate.
Oh, thank you. That's your time. That's your time. If you can please conclude. And if we can give a warning to all folks, please, that the volume is well, and pursuant to what we have said here, that if we can refrain from personal, impertinent, abusive, profane remarks, and also something in which is at that volume too. It is difficult to hear, and it's difficult to take in the public comment at that. Matthew Dowd is our next speaker. You did not, sir. Thank you. Matthew Dowd is our next speaker.
So with 22 of us, I think it would be great if anyone has a comment, and I hope some of you do, if you could raise your hand, and we would love to hear from you.
I see that Cassie has her hand raised.
Yeah, so that was certainly interesting. I mean, as entertaining as it was, I feel like there are much better uses of everyone's time, Zuma Dog included, for him and the city council members. I mean, even today, like at the Environment Committee, seeing how some of the public comments kind of went on some tangents that weren't exactly on point. It's really easy to get misconstrued. So that's just my comment from it.
Thank you, Cassie. I could not agree more. Yes, and everyone's time, including Zuma Dog. How about Paige DeCino?
Yeah, I would just say that while his enthusiasm is good, his message totally got lost, whatever he was trying to say. So I think you need to make sure you want to modulate your voice and be emotional, not emotional, passionate about what you're talking about, but not in his way. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Yes, thank you. Charles Pope.
Yeah, I was just going to echo the last comment. It certainly was entertaining, and he caught my attention, which is good. You want somebody to catch your attention, but you know, it wasn't clear what his objective was.
Right, other than to have them watch a news story. And I mean, he may have had a good point about some police activity going on at Venice Beach, but I couldn't tell what it was or what he wanted them to do about it. So yeah. So with that, let's watch another example.
On July 19th, we will be having an evening.
So in this example, this council meeting took place on December 30th of 2020. The caption, interestingly, says 2021, but it was definitely 2020, not December of 21. So due to the pandemic, council meetings have been held via video conference. So this meeting format looks very different from the one you just watched. In this example, one of our presenters, Rita Clement, is giving public comment regarding an agenda item. We're going to talk more about agenda items. And the topic is whether or not to extend the city's franchise agreement with San Diego Gas and Electric beyond the contract end date, rather than sign a new long-term contract. So again, as you watch the video, think about the following. What is Rita concerned about? What actions would she like to see the council take? And do you feel that her presentation was effective? Okay, Carl.
Rita Clement, you'll have 1 minute.
Good morning, Mayor Gloria, City Council members, and the city staff. My name is Rita Clement, and I'm a member of San Diego 350 and the Green New Deal Alliance. We have an opportunity to set up an energy distribution system that invests in our communities, meets our clean energy goals, and holds the franchisee accountable. For example, any franchise agreement must include a climate equity fund, a right to purchase clause, ensuring workers are fully protected during any transitions, and strong performance indicators. Please be strong negotiators and vote for a 1-year extension. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So what did people think about, now Rita is here on the line, so I guess that maybe wasn't fair. What does everybody think about Rita's comments?
Focused and thoughtful. It was clear that there was, may have even been written. And so because of that, they're again, just focused.
Yes, she got right. Barbara, I think that you're muted.
Okay. Okay, so I think that she had this list of things that she wanted, which me not being aware of it, but she would have to assume that people knew exactly what she was talking about, which I did not. So you have to think about your audience, and maybe the audience, she already knew that they were familiar with that.
That's a very good point, Rita, or Barbara, excuse me, that you brought up. And the difference between this example and the one that we just watched before with Zumadog is that Zumadog was commenting on a non-agenda item. And again, we're going to talk about agenda and non-agenda items, but because Rita's comment was based on an agenda item, and the agenda item was specific to San Diego Gas and Electric, then there's a bit more context that you're not seeing because you're just seeing Rita's comment. So that's the difference between an agenda item and a non-agenda item.
Okay.
Well, many other differences, but her specific discussion on San Diego Gas and Electric was that was what everyone was talking about at that point.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But that's a very good good observation.
Thank you.
So so now I'm going to hand off our presentation to Rita, who's going to show us how to get from inspiration to activism.
Good evening, everyone. After marching in the Rise to Climate demonstration, I joined San Diego 350 to learn more about climate change, legislation, and transportation in California. Little did I know what complex ideas awaited me on my journey to becoming a climate activist. Let's start with San Diego, the largest city in San Diego County. The link here is sandiego.gov, and it connects you with the San Diego City website. Now, going along the top header bar, you will see City Hall highlighted in orange. And when you click on that button, you will find information about city council meetings and commissions. The Environment Committee and the Planning Department are also important for our climate change work. The city staff are highly educated and skilled in aspects of our climate action plan. They are here to answer your questions and listen to your concerns. We build relationships with them and treat them with the respect that they deserve. When you want to find information about meetings, Click on dockets under City Council meetings. There you can find upcoming and recent meeting agendas and revised agendas. Cities are required to share this information with the public so that you can find the meeting information and look back at previous meetings agendas. Now, these two stories should capture your imagination and gain your attention. They're both concerning climate change. It's hot again. 2020 sets yet another global temperature record. Earth's rising fever hit or neared record hot temperature levels in 2020, global weather groups reported Thursday. While NASA and a couple of other measurement groups said 2020 passed or essentially tied 2016 as the hottest year on record, more agencies, including the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, said last year came in a close second or third. The differences in rankings mostly turned on how scientists accounted for data gaps in the Arctic, which is warming faster than the rest of the globe. We're in a position where we're pushing the climate system out of the bounds that it's been in for tens of thousands of years, if not millions of years. In February 2021, a climate emergency in Texas caused by severe cold, which caused the collapse of the electrical grid, freezing windmills and taking gas facilities offline. People were not knowledgeable about precautions needed to prevent the bursting of their water pipes. You're required to keep a trickle of water flowing if the temperature in the building falls below 55 degrees. As a result, water was shut off, leaving residents without water or heat. As a result, people died from carbon monoxide poisoning when they tried to stay warm in their cars, but did not ventilate the space. To speak during a meeting, you can join a meeting via the Zoom link. You can join by telephone. You can pay attention to item numbers. You must remember to unmute yourself, and there's various ways to do that. Also, remember not to wear your pajamas and remember not to wear your gym clothes after you work out. The meetings are held via a Zoom link, which is given to you when you register to speak. Some people call in on their phone. Directions are found on the website. I find it beneficial to enter the City Hall or county phone number into my phone. You enter this number when the clerk states the item number, hashtag you are about to discuss. You will be muted while you wait for your turn in the queue. The item number is usually provided by the San Diego Green New Deal call to action or the organizations such as San Diego 350 or the Sierra Club or another group holding a press conference. You can also comment via web form. Another way to voice your opinion or support your organization goals is to write e-comments. The e-comments are submitted by the date before the meeting. You may submit an e-comment and also speak during public comments during the meeting. There are limits placed on your e-comments. If you exceed the number of characters or words, your comments will not be able to be submitted. The limit is sometimes 200 or 500 or even 1,500 characters or words. So be sure to know that characters are letters, not words. The goal is to say something convincing in a short amount of space. Let's look at an example. Here's one from the county's website on the issue of future probation. Notice it is asking for some personal information, my position on the issue, and then there is a box where I can enter up to 500 characters. Again, that's 500 letters of comment. Be aware, as this is public comment, your comment will now show on that form for all to see, right below the form. So as always, be professional in what you write. To comment via email or postal service, please be mindful of deadlines. Be sure you send it in a timely manner. You're allowed to send attachments with your email or your letter. And be sure you address it. If you're sending it through the mail, send it to the city clerk or the county clerk. Next up is Berta Rodriguez to explain toolkits and talking points.
Thank you, Rita. So now I'll be talking about toolkits and talking points. And as an organizer, I've read into a lot of toolkits and created a couple of them. And so I think they're quite effective. So you may be getting a toolkit or talking points from your fellow activists, from friends, from coworkers, and you may ask yourself, what is a toolkit and why are they important? And honestly, they've helped me a lot and helped me save a lot of time with like navigating city council, navigating items, because sometimes I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. And so toolkits just are straight and direct. And so toolkits are usually a document sent out, well, usually a Google Doc or a website with information about a specific campaign or action. And they help you read through the campaign and instruct you to how to proceed. So they usually tell you how to register, where to find the calls to action, or where to find an e-comment, or where to watch or call. And so it's very useful, the toolkits, because they have all the instructions right there. But the most useful tool are the talking points. And talking points are phrases or short blurbs of the points and themes that the action wants you to highlight at the meeting. So if you don't know what to say, the talking points are there to help you create your own public comment. And there are a couple ways you might run into them. I will talk about two of them that are quite useful during COVID times. So one of them is like you might run into them through email, or now you might run into them through social media. Overall, toolkits and talking points are an effective way to help fellow activists, fellow volunteers to save time to give public comment, because all of us do not have the time to research and write our own talking points. Next slide. Awesome, thank you. So where can you find toolkits? And so this is an example of a call to action I sent out last week. And so for example, this one is a call to action to the Land Use and Housing Committee to have a Tenants Protection Board and rent registry as a priority on the work plan. And you might be like, what? What is that? Like, I don't understand. I'm overwhelmed already. And so don't worry. Usually these emails have information where you can find the link to the toolkit and find the link to facts. And so they usually come with all this information. That way you don't have to be like an expert on these things, or an expert of what committee this is, or an expert on Tenants Rights Board. And so those links are there and embedded to help you. Can you go to the next slide? All right, thank you. So here's another example of how you may run into toolkits. And so I usually scroll through my Twitter feed, Instagram feed, and I always find these calls to action. And so you may be getting them through Twitter, Instagram. And so you might be like, okay, cool, there's a call to action. What do I do? And so here's an example of Coastkeeper and Surfrider. And so you see that each post has links. And so if you click on those links, you can see where the links takes us. So on the next slide, you can see Coastkeeper's call to action. And so it's so nice because Coastkeeper has made it so easy for you to like be able to like know what's going on. So the most important things they highlight, like the date, the time, the location. They always add the meeting agenda so you can find the information on the item you want to talk about. And they talk, and also they have information on the campaign. So if you're so unsure, like, do I want to talk about this? Is this important? And so they add information why that campaign is really important. and they give you instructions on how to give public comment. And so like the Zoom links, the numbers, how to unmute yourself. And so they also give you options that if you need to do e-comment as well, if you can't give a call, because I know a lot of us are super busy and sometimes we're in 10 meetings in one day and we can't just wait an hour or two to just call. So sometimes e-comments is the most accessible way we can advocate. And so they always give that option of doing e-comments or even letters in their instructions. And so in the next slide, we have another example of Surfrider. So if you clicked on that link, Surfrider takes you to their newsletter where this one was a call to action on declaring pollution at the Tijuana River Valley public health crisis. And so in that link that you clicked, they sent you right here, and then you see on the bottom where it says blog post, where that blog post would take you would be the same thing as Coastkeeper sent you. And so it would have like instructions, where to find the Zoom links, where to register, where to write your e-comments. And so most of these toolkits make it really easy to go advocate at the city and at the county. And so toolkits are created by organizers like myself, so people can advocate for issues that they care about in an effective way. And we try to make it very accessible for people. Toolkits give you helpful tips you need to make so you make sure your voice is heard. And we know you're all really busy, don't have the time to research. And so we're here to connect with you and help you make sure your voice is heard. Next slide. And so I know this one's a little bit wordy, but I wanted to show you an example of how a talking point looks like. And so it says like, here, my name is this blank, and this is what I'm talking about. And so I wanted to show this so that way you can have an idea of like what talking points look like. And so these talking points are going to help you write your own public comment. And so you can just cut and paste, write your own, and be ready to like give your public comment. And don't worry, if you still have a hard time figuring out what to say, what to write, or even have a hard time like just figuring out the county or the city council meeting websites, you can always send an email to those people. So you can always write back to the organizer and be like, hey, thank you for the toolkit, but I'm still lost. Or hey, I think this campaign is really interesting, but I want to know more. And so you can always connect with us, and we will be happy to help you navigate those things and learn more about campaigns. So now I'm going to pass it to Carl, who will talk about the breakdown of a city council meeting.
Thanks, Berta. So I'm Carl Aldinger, and I'm an organizer with the Sierra Club San Diego. Let's look into what a typical meeting looks like. City council meetings, like most board meetings, follow an agenda and have a predictable order to what's going to happen. Understanding this can help you make your public comment a whole lot easier. As Rita showed us, you can locate the agenda on the city's website, and it's always available a few days before the meeting. Looking inside the agenda, you'll find the item that you're wanting to address the council about, and it will be enumerated. In this case, I wanted to speak in support of item number 10, the climate emergency declaration. Now, I'm talking about an in-person meeting here, not a Zoom one. So this is a little bit different, but I hope that we get out of COVID time soon, and some of you get to experience what it's like to be in a real live meeting. So before the meeting even starts, you'll have to have read through the agenda and check to see what's necessary before you speak. Some meetings you'll attend in person after COVID has passed. So let's consider that situation too. If you're present at a meeting, you'll likely have to fill out a form before the meeting begins. So it's critical you arrive early enough to find this slip, have a pen, fill it out, and pass it into the clerk or official before the meeting begins. I'll repeat that, before the meeting begins. If you're attending a meeting virtually via a Zoom or a phone, you may be required to fill out an online form or an email to the clerk. The agenda for the meeting will give you the details, so you'll need to consult it way before the meeting. Sometimes the cutoff for being included in public comment for virtual meetings is 24 hours or maybe 1 hour before the meeting start time. So a pro tip, an ally can help fill out this form for you. Say, for example, you are trying to make it to a city council meeting downtown, and you can't figure out how to get there, or you're delayed because of traffic. You might want to call ahead to another ally, someone that you know is speaking, and say, could you please fill out that form for me? I will be there before the meeting starts. Or I will be there just a few minutes after the meeting starts, but I'll be there in plenty of time to give my public comment. Meetings start off with some formalities, including a call to order, roll call for the officials, a pledge of allegiance, and just when you think you're going to be there for a long time, boom, the council president says, we will now take non-agenda public comment. Clerk, do we have any non-agenda public comment? So this may also be called oral communications. A little later, Joe will cover non-agenda public comment. I should just mention here that non-agenda public comment is where most first-timers make their mistake. Instead of, especially in online meetings where the lack of slips and using a Zoom raised hand can really mess up the protocols for how you're supposed to speak. If the clerk calls your name at this point and you know you're there for an agenda item, remember I found item number 10 in the with the climate emergency, you should speak up and say, I'm actually here to speak on item number 10 on the agenda. And I can tell you from lots of personal experience, if you don't, and you try to squeeze your comments in the wrong section of the meeting, which first time speakers usually don't really understand that they're doing this improperly, council members may cut you off. So be prepared to correct the clerk instead of speaking at the wrong time. Following public comment, often will come approval of the minutes. The next part is usually a consent agenda, and it might cover topics the council doesn't want to debate or discuss. It's kind of a bundle of things where they think they will pass, so they just ask for a motion, a second, a vote, and then move on. So it's less likely that you will be there to give comment on a consent agenda item. But if it's enumerated in the agenda, you can offer public comment on an item in the consent agenda. Now we're moving on to the main meeting. What happens next and in what order varies greatly from meeting to meeting and council to council. It may include presentations by staff, informational agenda items, discussion agenda items, and even scheduled votes to approve an ordinance or spending. Oftentimes you are at this meeting because of something that is being covered in this section. Something agendized concerns you. Because you've handed in your slip or signed up online, the clerk should be aware that you're wanting to speak on the item. But it's important to note some Zoom council meetings are requiring you to raise your virtual hand when your item is called. They may announce your item and then begin to hear from staff before they call on the public to comment. Generally, they'll call on you before the council begins their own discussion, and they definitely need to call on you before they vote. If you're present at a meeting and they've skipped asking the clerk if there's any public comment and they begin to take a vote, that's a good time to start waving your arms around to attract the attention of the clerk. And then they'll usually look down at their notes and say, oh, excuse me, we do have one person here who would like to give public comment on this issue. So as they announce public comment for your item, you'll want to have your written version of your public comment already in your hand and ready to go. When they call your name, step up to the dais. That's the traditional name for the lectern, the microphone. If it's a packed house and they're trying to streamline things, they may announce who's speaking next. If that happens, when you hear your name, stand up and stand behind the current speaker, but leaving plenty of room so you don't crowd them. When you speak, the clerk will start a clock, and you will usually have anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes to speak. In next week's training, we'll talk about strategies for how to work within these time constraints. Before you begin speaking at the dais, adjust the microphone so you're speaking directly into it. As soon as you begin, the clock starts counting down. So you'll have practiced this, so speak at the pace that you practiced and try to make eye contact at least a few times. We'll cover what to say and how to say it in next week's training session. If the bell goes off while you're speaking, finish your sentence, say thank you, and stop speaking. You will certainly undermine your message if you break the rules and try to talk over the clerk as they say, "I'm sorry, your time is up, next speaker." In the following example, you'll hear me give a public comment. I knew that we had a lot of community support that night, so I worked to keep my comments very brief.
Thank you. Next speaker is Carl Aldinger. You have 3 minutes. You can start when ready.
Hello, I'm Carl Aldinger speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club San Diego in support of the declaration. We need bold, unprecedented action to address climate crisis, and this climate emergency resolution is a critical step in framing Encinitas' future actions and policies. No act we take in this fight for our future will be too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker is Carl.
Okay, now we're going to hear from Joe, who's going to talk to us about non-agenda public comment.
Thanks, Carl, and thank you to everyone else. Sometimes we want to make a comment on a topic not scheduled on the agenda. The time for those comments is when non-agenda public comment is announced. This may be at the beginning of the meeting or at the end, so you need to be prepared. You may need to sit through the entire meeting. In the sample agenda that we're showing on the next slide, the public comments are taken at the end, so you would end up waiting. Non-agenda items may be on any topic that is within the council's jurisdiction. Really important that it be in the council's jurisdiction. Note that when an agenda item is announced, Zoom participants typically raise their hand, their virtual hand, to express a desire to comment. Attendees are usually called on in the sequence that they raise their hand. Hence, the sequence of speakers is rather random. Occasionally, you will want to speak for longer time than the allocated 1 to 3 minutes on a particular topic. Let's assume you need 12 minutes to present your information. If each speaker has 3 minutes, you could ask the clerk if 3 of your friends would be allowed to cede their time to you. So with their 9 minutes and your 3, you'd have 12 minutes. Note, this may not be allowed, and your friends will need to be present for this to work. Of course, you will need 5 friends if 2 minutes are allocated per speaker, and sometimes we don't know whether you're going to get 1, 2, or 3 minutes before the time to speak. Will be adjusted dynamically if there are many speakers, we'll get less time. Alternatively, you and your 3 friends could each speak for 3 minutes. Over Zoom, this could be a big challenge if your story is sequential and you want to speak in a specific order. Random speaking slots would be very awkward. Please contact the clerk before the meeting to request a sequence of contiguous speakers. For in-person comments after COVID, have all speakers show up at the clerk's desk at the same time and in the order that you desire to speak. Speakers are usually arranged in that order, and they then submit their comments at the order they submit their comments to the clerk. For in-person sessions, each person will need to fill out a speaker request form. Perhaps some of you saw this stimulating picture. In February, last week, a major cold wave and snowstorm hit the Midwest, and especially Texas. This picture shows plowed roads on the Arkansas side of the state border in Texarkana, and unplowed roads in Texas on the left side of the picture. Texas simply has not invested in snowplows. This obviously increases the risk of collisions when driving. Assuming you lived in Texarkana, would you think it would be relevant to comment on this non-agenda item at the next city council meeting? Assuming you think it would be relevant, what do you think the city's responsibilities to citizen safety are? What would you want to say? Maybe shape up and spend some sensible money to protect us? Well, at this moment, I think it's fair to say you have enough of the structure that you can feel, if you didn't before, that you are completely empowered to observe your community, our community, and ask elected officials to take action to improve the community in any way that you think makes sense. I was on the San Diego Environmental Committee, City of San Diego Environmental Committee meeting this afternoon, and there were several points at the end of the meeting where the city council members pointed out that it was climate activists in the community that caused things to happen. And one in particular that they mentioned several, but just to mention one, was Pure Water San Diego, process of purifying water that is going to be expanded here in San Diego over the next, well, actually 15 years. Pure water won't be fully operational till 2035, but part of it in 2025. So what I'm saying is, not only are we empowered to speak, what we say matters. The city council members are listening. Next slide. This is a picture of Highway 78 in Oceanside after a nasty rainstorm last spring. I would ask, does this merit comment? The overpass that you're looking at there is El Camino Real. Should we reach out to the Oceanside City Council to comment? Or perhaps Caltrans? Who has the authority to act to improve drainage or make adjustments to allow that water to flow away from the road? As citizens, should we be passive and just ignore this and shrug it off and say, well, it was a rainstorm and it'll be fine next time or the rest of the year or whatever, or should we act? If you reach out to the Oceanside City Council, I suspect this is not their jurisdiction, right? So very important that you're speaking to people about issues that they can act on. Next. On the left side of this picture, this was, I apologize, we took it last Sunday and it was, we were driving in the fast lane, so it wasn't a great picture, but nonetheless, you get the idea that there's trash there on the side of the road. The week before, Highway 78 was littered with trash. Clearly, Caltrans came in during the following week. But last Sunday, there was still a lot of trash there on 78 between Oceanside and Escondido. If you want to speak to a city council, should we speak to each of the 4 city councils? That is Oceanside, San Marcos, Vista, and Escondido, or not? And if we speak to the city councils, what would we ask them to do? To clean up the road? Okay. Would you be willing to comment about this? Well, I will tell you that last year, a group of us did comment and made a big fuss about the trash along our freeway. The mayors, not responsible directly, all stood up and contacted Caltrans and said, please clean up the freeway. In a few weeks, however, trash again littered the roadway. I'm sure that you've already seen pictures of trash that on the ocean front and so forth. I'm sure if you walk around the community anywhere, anytime, it's very sad. Trash is everywhere. One of our members recently told a story about her long experience with plastic trash on the beach. She shared her, quote, personal record of picking up 162 plastic straws on a single beach walk in Oceanside. Just astonishing. Does this topic deserve speaking at a city council meeting and asking for action? In March next week, 2 weeks rather, in March next, on the 9th, we'll again speak to the Vista City Council, asking them once again to ban single-use plastics in the city, to pass a law to do that. And hopefully they will take action and direct the staff to go write that law. So the question I would ask you to think about is, what topics do you consider worthy of non-agenda comments to the City Council or to the County Board of Supervisors? Let's take a couple of moments and get some thoughts about this. What do you think you would like to speak about or like to get action on?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Air quality in National City and Barrio Logan.
Great topic. Just as an aside, I heard Supervisor Nathan Fletcher in a presentation make the statement that a child growing up in Barrio Logan is 8 times more likely to have asthma than one growing up in La Jolla. So air quality is indeed a major issue. Others?
This is Paige. We're going to have next month a climate emergency resolution coming up in front of the Carlsbad City Council. So we have already started making off-agenda comments on that just to prepare them for that topic, that resolution.
Fantastic. Are you going to invite us all to join you, Paige, and to have more speakers?
I just put something on Slack about that. So Carl's more adept at that platform than I am. I'll leave that to him.
Okay, thank you. Others?
Yes, I'm Pat. And I would like to see the cities adopt a regulation for no idling. If you walk through a parking lot, how many cars do you hear idling for no reason at all? And I believe that Del Mar has that regulation in place. And I did send an email to all of our city council members here in Oceanside probably a year or two ago, and I didn't even get a response from them. So it's been in the back of my mind to approach them in a more efficient manner like this.
That's a great idea, Pat. With a putting together a toolkit that Bertha told us about, and that we'll see again in a few minutes, you could probably get some of your friends and family on this call to comment with you. You know, how many people sit in a Starbucks line waiting for a coffee, idling their car?
Yes, and right now vaccination spots, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Or
yes.
Costco waiting for gas. I'm always the one turning my car off.
Yes.
So yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this whole Zoom meeting, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. Other comments? Other thoughts?
I had a question. So when you were talking about the jurisdiction and like specifically with the one with the flooding and how we wouldn't want to report that one because it's for Caltrans jurisdiction, would it be, I don't know, would it be beneficial to bring it up just so they are aware of it because it's infrastructure in the city and they could like do the same thing that they did with the litter, or is that just kind of a waste of time?
Well, I don't know that it's a waste of time. It can't hurt, but if you go to Caltrans with that, you're more likely to get action because they're empowered to do something about it. You know, I don't think the city of Oceanside can get into the drainage on the freeway system. I think that's more the Caltrans folks, which is really the point. You know, if we approached, well, let's say Oceanside to fix, to be just radical, to fix a air quality problem in Miami, you know, it's kind of silly. They're just not in the same, you know, they're not in any way responsible for that. So, you know, like whatever that fellow at the beginning, Snoop Dogg or whoever it was that was commenting there, you know, we had no idea what he was trying to say or what he was asking anybody for. And so why make a comment in one of these public sessions if it's not focused, if there's not an ask, and if it's not addressed to people who can actually act on it? I guess those are the key points.
One thing to keep in mind, though, is that if you're ever unsure and you don't want to go to a council member and jump in and not really know if this is the correct jurisdiction, the council can address it. One of the things to keep in mind is that you can always email your mayor, your city council representatives, and ask them in an email, and they will respond. If it's not their jurisdiction, they will get back to you and say, well, this isn't our place, and ask them who. If this is not you, who do I talk to? And they should get back to you and let you know. So if you're ever unsure and you don't want to speak out in public, always feel free to reach out to your representatives. They work for us. Keep that in mind.
That's why they got voted into office, right? Other comments, other topics you think we should address, or they should, you would like to address to a city council, to your council?
There's a Senate Bill 99 that was just recently introduced. And I would like the city councils to know about it because it's a grant proposal for communities of concern to build microgrids and also to train people to work in that kind of job. And so I think the council members should be aware of this Senate bill because this would be a way to fund projects in communities of concern. And I think if we all called in and supported this bill, I think it might pass.
Sounds really worthy. Well, Carl, could you go to the next slide, please? And play that comment.
Masada Dizenhouse, can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, this is Masada Dizenhouse with San Diego 350. I just wanted to comment briefly on the public comment process itself and to urge the committee and the full council to develop a better public comment process. As you're aware, the process has been severely compromised during the pandemic, and we understand and appreciate the difficulty of having to move meetings online. And also we really appreciate the move to Zoom. It's definitely made it easier to participate. But here are a few ideas for improving the process. One, show all the council members during public comment and anytime when you don't need slides up. You don't need to have a giant slide covering everything. We want to see how people react and that they're participating. And I think we have the right to see that. We want to also ensure that all people who are presenting or who are on screen have their full names and titles or roles so that we know who they are. We would really appreciate the opportunity to present organized presentations or return to seating time so that we can better coordinate our comments and ideally have more than 1 minute to present or comment on complex topics. So we just urge you to take those comments under consideration and hopefully improve the process for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, a comment about comments. So was Masada's message clear? Was it well spoken? Easily
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Well spoken and easily understood. Do you think Masada practiced so that she could present within the 1 minute time limit that she had?
Yes.
She probably wrote it out and practiced a little bit. Is she right that complex topics may need more than 1 minute?
Yep.
I made 2 comments today and we had 1 minute each, and it was just, you know, at some level satisfying to be able to make a comment, but if we were able to speak longer, we could have certainly told us a deeper, more profound story. So let's put ourselves in the place of the council members listening to Masada's comment for a moment. How would you receive this comment? What would you be thinking?
That it was obvious that she had thoughtful comments, that she had put it into a very logical progression, and that she was I think most people, or most of council people, would be impressed with her suggestions.
Yeah, and respectful?
Yes.
Who's more likely to get action, Zoom Dog from the beginning or Masada from here?
Well, it depends on what kind of action.
At least they wouldn't throw her out, right?
Right.
Well, we're having a little bit of fun here. Maybe we could have a little more fun. Carl, next slide, please.
Masada Dizenhouse can unmute yourself.
Wrong direction. Next slide. There you go.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
we're
a
trying
look.
to, can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow.
So what are your thoughts about not being a cat?
On in the video.
Was this deliberate? The cat's lips were moving. It had to be deliberate.
No, it was an accident. I mean,
really?
The filter was deliberate, but if we got to remove it before talking to the judge.
The cat's lips were moving. It looked like it was talking.
Yeah. I think that's the point behind that particular filter. Oh my.
Oh.
Do you think it might be useful to know the tools you're working with and maybe to have practiced just a little bit? And how impressed do you think the judge is going to be with this lawyer's pleading, whatever it might have been?
Not very.
Not very. It's kind of a clown, right? Why are you doing this kind of thing in your business? You know, I mean, if you're, you know, a child living at home or something, that might be just charming. But I'm not sure that it has its place or it's appropriate in this particular place. Anyway, you get the point. Know your tools, practice, be a Masada, you know, be a Carl, be a Rita. Dear Linda, can we pass it back to you?
Sure. Hello, it's me again. We covered quite a bit of material this evening. I kicked off with a description of what public comment is and what it isn't. We then watched and discussed a couple of examples of people giving comments at council meetings. Rita showed you how to navigate the City of San Diego website to locate the steps necessary to find an agenda and submit comment. Bertha talked about the value of toolkits and talking points. Carl then walked us through a typical council meeting. And Joe finished our presentation by discussing non-agenda comments, including a number of timely examples. As we close our presentation, we now invite you to take what you've learned and create a public comment to share next week when we go over more tips and tricks to presenting. So here's your homework. You will be receiving an email with a toolkit containing talking points. Using that toolkit, we invite you to prepare a 1-minute comment to share when we meet again next week. Alternatively, if you'd like to write a 1-minute non-agenda type comment, we would also welcome that. While this homework is not mandatory, we feel that it is a valuable exercise that will help you be better prepared to give comment at council meetings. Next week will be a safe space to share and learn. We promise that. Are you a seasoned pro at giving public comment? We would love to hear from you. So we have some time. We have a few minutes to answer questions that you may have. So I'm going to pass this over to Bertha. If you have questions, please raise your hand in the chat.
I got one question right here. It says, how does the council determine what specifically goes into an agenda or the agendas that they send out? And so this is a really good question.
I can try to field that. So there are definitely rules for this. The council members can work with the city staff to get something on the agenda. It is their prerogative to help get things put on the agenda. But what they can't do is spur of the moment, think of something mid-meeting and put it on the agenda. So it has to be, because of the Brown Act and the notification to the public, it has to be placed on the agenda several days ahead of the meeting. And so this is one of the reasons why you want to not only read that agenda, but also check just a few days before the meeting and see if the agenda has been updated. Because sometimes they'll add more things to the agenda, or sometimes they'll move something off of the agenda. And in addition, pay attention during the meeting, because sometimes during that first part with consent agenda, they'll ask if someone wants to kick something out of the consent agenda and move it into the regular agenda. So things can kind of move around, but there are definitely rules for this. And also, one of the good reasons for giving non-agenda public comment is that this is a way to get your council members to eventually agendize something. So they may not be ready to do discussions or have a vote on something, but you're going to start prodding them and then maybe have some offline discussions with them as well. This is a way that you get things onto the agenda.
This is Paige. I just have a couple of comments. One is that in my city of Carlsbad, sometimes the mayor will just randomly, to my perspective, reorder the agenda items. So if you're expecting to speak at some time, you better be careful not to just walk out and come back an hour later. The other thing is that for people who aren't comfortable speaking in front of other people, especially when we get back to in person, and even now in Zoom, you can submit just written comments. If that makes you more comfortable, I would suggest that you do that well above time beforehand, because then it goes into the agenda packet that everybody has access to, as opposed to the action agenda that shows up after, and you're more likely to have it more visible to the public that way and the council members. So that's just my comments.
Good comments. It's often the case that written comments have to be submitted by 5 p.m. the day before the meeting. There's certainly going to be a cutoff of some sort.
That depends on the city. That's not true in Carlsbad. So, yeah.
And Margot Lowe has a comment.
Well, my only comment is about technology. Those last two videos, I wasn't getting the sound. So who's the tech expert?
Yeah, sorry about that, Margot. One of the problems of us taking these from the original sources that the city puts up is we don't really get to remix those. So sorry about that. We'll try to make sure that if we use things in the next one, that we get that ramped up.
Well, am I the only one that didn't get the sound?
No, it was definitely quieter. We should have warned you to try to turn your volume way up. So sorry about that. Charles?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to participate in this. I found it very helpful and very constructive. you talked about the fact that the topic needs to be relevant to the jurisdiction. Does the person making the comment need to be a resident of that jurisdiction? And also, to what extent or under what circumstances would it be more advantageous to make a written public comment rather than a spoken one?
I don't think I think you don't have to be a resident. The San Diego City Council meeting today that I commented on, I am a resident of Vista. So you just have to have a strong interest in, somebody else want to take the second question?
Yeah, so just to follow up on what Joe said, usually the argument is made that, well, do you use the city? You know, do you attend events at the city? Do you work at the city? Do you have interactions with the city? Then that kind of qualifies you. I think the one thing that people don't expect is for somebody from a completely different part of the world to drop in and talk about a local issue. But as members of the advocate and environmental community, oftentimes we do speak across city boundaries. And we just know that we don't want to slow down maybe the climate movement, for example, something that I'm working on, or environmentalism. So, you know, you can use your own discretion about whether or not you should cross city boundaries. I know I've seen a lot of people think that they need to declare that they're a resident of the city to be heard. And that's really not true. But I appreciate that part of the question, because a lot of people think that you really don't have any place in speaking at a council meeting if you're not a resident. And then the other question you had was, is there an advantage to a written comment? And I would say a lot of times what we're trying to convey is very detailed, or might include like attachments, or you may need to reference something that is completely impossible to express orally, right? So if you want to cite 3 different things that you saw as you were looking into this, and they're all easy to reference online, you don't want to try to speak that out loud to people. They'll never get it. So that's a really important time to have it in writing. And oftentimes what we'll see really pro commenters do is they'll turn in their written comment, and then they'll show up in person too. And they'll keep that part very brief, but they will make references to their written comment and remind the council that I sent in written comment, and these are the things that you'll find when you go and read that. But written comment's awesome, especially you can put hyperlinks in there with electronic written comment and get people, you know, down the rabbit hole of seeing what it is that you've seen.
Or it might include a picture that would be hard to display in a written, in an oral presentation.
Yeah, you're also probably more likely to get contacted back by a council member or a mayor or staff if you had an important issue and you expect some follow-up. It's a little bit harder for them to do when you give public comment. They usually have your name, but they don't always, you know, keep close track of your phone number and your email. And so you may not get a response back, whereas with written, you're more likely to. Any other questions?
No, that looks like everyone. Yeah, you guys, this is awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Presenters, thank you. The San Diego Green New Deal Alliance thanks you. And we hope you guys have enjoyed this, and we hope to see you next week. We're going to share even more next week. We've got lots planned. And please tell your friends about this so that we get even more participants next week.
Might I say, when we share the slides, the people who couldn't hear the last 2 comments can replay those slides and hear them. So don't feel that you have missed out.
Right, yes, I'll check through the video and hopefully I can edit it if I need to. Hopefully, I'll do my best, I promise.
Okay, folks. So we'll see you here same time next week at 6:30. And watch your email for that toolkit from Berta about the topic that we would suggest that you write a public comment about. Again, it's a short one, And we don't expect yours to be perfect. We want you to give it a shot and try to experience what it's like to work from some talking points and try to create your own comment. But we will be giving you lots of strategies about how to make really good public comment, and we'll talk about that next week.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate your interest in all this, and we hope to see you out there in the city council meetings as well. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Cool. Alrighty.
I think that went pretty well. Are you the one that's recording? Because Deolinda's gone.
I am not.
I can still record.
I'm sure it'll stop itself. So anyway, I'll see you guys. Are we meeting tomorrow by any chance to try to go over? We are. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So that's at 2, is that right?
Let me look.
We're gonna pop all this in the end of the recording. She'll have to edit.
It's 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
3.
Okay. All right. I'll see you all then, and don't worry if my slides are not completed until right before.
Thank you for moving the slides.
Oh, you're welcome.
That worked
Yeah.
out.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.